نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله وسلم عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد. To proceed, continuing where we left off as regards the topic of the description of paradise and the people of paradise, and the qualities of the people of paradise and the description of paradise itself. Al-Imam al-Hafiz, Shaykh al-Islam, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, Ibn Qayyim rather rahmatullahi alayhi, he says in his book Hadi al-Arwah ila Bilad al-Afrah, and the book that is around 400 pages, 70 chapters long, about the description of paradise. He says in the beginning of this book, فَيَا عَجَبًا مِنْ سَفِيهٍ فِي صَوْرَةِ حَلِيمٍ. How astonishing is it that you find a foolish person who appears to be intelligent, وَمَعْتُوحٍ فِي مِصْلَاخِ عَاقِلٍ, and a person who is a retard with the flesh of an intelligent person clothed upon them. آثر الحظ الفاني الخسيس على الحظ الباقي النفيس, who has preferred a temporary portion of enjoyment in this world that is worthless over an everlasting portion of enjoyment that is precious. وَبَعَ جَنَّةً عَرْضُهَا السَّمَاوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضُ بِسِجْنٍ ضَيِّقٍ بَيْنَ أَرْبَابِ الْعَاهَاتِ وَالْبَلِيَّاتِ, and who has exchanged the paradise أَرْضُهَا السَّمَاوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضُ, that is as wide as the distance between the heavens to the earth. بِسِجْنٍ ضَيِّقٍ, he has exchanged that with a constricted prison. بَيْنَ أَرْبَابِ الْعَاهَاتِ وَالْبَلِيَّاتِ, between those people that are the masters of calamity and lewdness and vice. وَمَسَاكِنَ طَيِّبَةً فِي جَنَّاتِ عَدْنٍ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ بِعَطَانٍ ضَيِّقٍ آخِرُهَا الْخَرَابُ وَالْبَوَارُ. And how astonishing is it that a person who claims to be intelligent, that they would exchange the opportunity to be in gardens that are everlasting, under which rivers flow, بِعَطَانٍ ضَيِّقَةٍ, and need to connect themselves in exchange to constricted cattle pens. آخِرُهَا الْخَرَابُ وَالْبَوَارُ, the end result of which will be al-kharab, any destruction, wal-bawar, and ruin. وَأَبْكَارًا عُرُبًا أَتْرَابًا كَأَنَّهُنَّ الْيَاقُوتُ وَالْمَرْجَانُ, and who would exchange virgin women that are young in age and who endear themselves to their spouses, who appear in beauty to be like corals. كَالْيَاقُوتِ وَالْمَرْجَانِ بِقَدِرَاتٍ دَنِيسَاتٍ سَيِّئَاتِ الْأَخْلَاقِ, who would exchange women that are at the highest level of beauty, outwardly and inwardly, with the most beautiful characteristics, the most beautiful treatment of their spouses, who would exchange women like that for women that are qadirat, any women that are nasty, danisat, women that are lowly, sayyi'at al-akhlaq, or evil in character, musafihat amutakhidati akhdan, any women that are promiscuous and take many partners. وحورا مقصورات في الخيام بخبيثات مسيبات بين الآنام, and who would exchange women that are concealed in the most beautiful pavilions in the paradise for women that are khabithat, for women that are filthy and impure, musayyibat bain al-anam, that are passed around between the people. وَأَنْهَارًا مِنْ خَمَرٍ لَذَّةً لِلشَّارِبِينَ, and who would exchange a river of khamr that is pleasurable to those that drink it, بِشَرَابٍ نَجَسٍ مُذْهِبٍ الْعَقْلِ مُفْسِدٍ لِلدُّنْيَا وَالدِّينِ. They would exchange that for a drink or anything else that intoxicates, for that matter, that is najas, that is disgusting and filthy and impure, that removes the intellect of a person and destroys it and corrupts a person's worldly affairs and their religiosity, their practice of their religion. وَلَذَّةَ النَّظْرِ إِلَى وَجْهِ الْعَزِيزِ الرَّحِيمِ. And how astonishing is it that a person would exchange the opportunity to look at the face of Al-Aziz Ar-Rahim, of the God that is almighty and all merciful, بِتَمَتُّعِ بِرُؤْيَةِ الْوَجْهِ الْقَبِيحِ الذَّمِيمِ, because they like to enjoy looking at the faces of women that in reality are ugly and hideous and are dhamim and are blameworthy. وَالسِّمَاعِ الْخِيطَابِ مِنَ الرَّحْمَنِ بِسِمَاعِ الْمَعَازِفِ وَالْغِنَاءِ وَالْأَلْحَانِ. And how astonishing is it that a person would jeopardize their opportunity to hear the speech of Ar-Rahman speaking directly to them, Tabarak wa Ta'ala, because they want to listen to musical instruments and singing and the likes of these affairs. وَالْجُلُوسِ عَلَى مَنَابِرِ اللُّؤْلُ وَالْيَاقُوتِ وَزَبْرَجَدِ يَوْمِ الْمَزِيدِ. And they exchange the opportunity to sit upon manabir, upon pulpits of lu'luh, of pearls, وَالْيَاقُوتِ وَزَبْرَجَدِ, and coral and emerald, on the day of mazid, on the day of increase, when the creation will wait every Jummah to see the face of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. بالجلوس في مجالس الفسوق مع كل شيطان مريد, because they want to sit in the sittings of wickedness with every rebellious devil. ونداء المنادي يا أهل الجنة إن لكم أن تنعموا فلا تبأسوا وتحيوا فلا تموتوا وتقيموا فلا تضعنوا وتشبوا فلا تهرموا بغناء المغنين. He said, and how astonishing is it that a person would jeopardize the opportunity to hear the caller call out, O people of Jannah, indeed you are going to be in bliss and you will never feel harm or pain again. And indeed you are going to live eternally and you will never die. And indeed you will reside therein and you will never have to depart. وَتَشِبُّ فَلَا تَهْرَمُ. And then you will be young in age and you will never grow old, because they want to listen to the singing of the musicians and the likes of these affairs. These words from Al-Imām Al-Hafidh ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala are very relevant to our situation. And much of what we see of the ills in our community, and they are reminded for us that the reality of the affair is that our belief about Allah, and our belief about the hereafter, and our belief about the Dar al-Kirama, and the world that Allah has prepared to honor the believers, is a belief that requires from us to make a choice. What do we prefer? Do we prefer to have as we heard in the statement of Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, the behavior and the creed and the aspirations and the ambitions, and so on and so forth, the qualities of the malaika and the people of Jannah? Do we want to go about in this world emulating devils and looking up to devils, and in the company of people and behaving ourselves like people that are nothing but animals, and who have preferred an immediate enjoyment in this world to that which is eternal? Abu Sulaiman al-Darani rahmatullahi alayhi, he said, لو كانت الآخرة من خذف باق والدنيا لو كانت الآخرة من خذف فان والدنيا من ذهب باق لا وجب على العاقل أن يؤثر al-Baqi al-Fani. He said, may Allah have mercy upon him. He said that if this world was made out of eternal gold, and the hereafter was made, if this world was made out of temporary gold rather, and the hereafter was made out of eternal clay, everlasting clay, then it would be mandatory for an intelligent person to choose what is everlasting over what is temporary. He said, وَكَيْفَ وَالدُّنْيَا مِنْ خَضَفٍ فَانٍ وَالْآخِرَةِ مِنْ ذَهَبٍ بَاقٍ. He said, how much more is the case when this world is made out of temporary clay and the hereafter is made out of permanent gold. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he has tremendous speech reminding us of the descriptions of the paradise and of the reality of the paradise, and how Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala is al-Khaliq al-Qadir al-Alim al-Hakim. Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala is the creator, and He is all powerful and He is all wise, and He is not limited as regards the asbab and the musabbabat, as regards cause and effect. يَخْلُقُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيَفْعَلُ مَا يُرِيدُ. He creates what He wills tabaraka wa ta'ala and does as He wills tabaraka wa ta'ala. And that what is in the hereafter shouldn't astonish us when we look at the reality of this dunya and how Allah has created things in the most beautiful fashion in this world and in the most amazing fashion in this world. He said, and this is no lighter to Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, or no less to Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, as regards the amazing nature in which Allah created the affairs and what is in the hereafter. He says, may Allah have mercy upon him. فَرَبُّ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ وَاحِدٌ وَهُوَ الْخَارِقُ لِلْأَسْبَابِ وَالْحَكِيمُ فِيمَا يَخْلُقُهُ فِي الدُّنْيا وَالْآخِرَةِ. He said that the Lord of this world and the hereafter is the same Lord and Creator. He is the creator of cause and effect. He controls cause and effect as regards what is created in this world and the hereafter. وَالْأَسْبَابُ مُظْهِرُ أَفْعَالِهِ وَحِكْمَتِهِ وَلَكِنَّهَا تَخْتَلِفُ. And the means by which Allah creates what He creates is a manifestation of His actions and His wisdom. But they can be different than what they occur in this world. Like for example, fire burns, and water drowns, so on and so forth. Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala is not restricted to cause and effect. And when things leave from the natural course of affairs, that is called supernatural or miraculous. So Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, and He can bring the dead back to life. Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, He caused the fire to be a means of coolness for Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. Wallahu tabaraka wa ta'ala, He controls cause and effect. And what He creates in the hereafter as He creates it is not beyond the understandings of the people. وَلِهَذَا يَقَعُ التَّعَجُّبُ مِنَ الْعَبْدِ لِبُرُورِ أَفْعَالِهِ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى عَلَى أَسْبَابٍ غَيْرَ الْأَسْبَابِ الْمَحْمُودَةِ الْمَأْلُوفَةِ. He said, due to this it so happens that some people become astonished that Allah can do things and cause things to occur by means that are other than what they are used to, the normal means, how things happen in this world, such as the miracles of the Prophet and what Allah has created in paradise. وَرُبَّمَا حَمَلَهُ ذَلِكَ عَلَى الْإِنْكَارِ وَالْكُفْرِ. He said to the extent that will cause some of the weak-minded of the creation to reject what Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam has informed us of, or to disbelieve. He said, وَذَلِكَ مَحْضُ الْجَهْلِ وَالظُّلْمِ. He said, and that is pure ignorance and oppressiveness, that they would do so. وَإِلَّا فَلَيْسَتْ قُدْرَتُهُ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى مَقْصُورًا على أسباب أخر ومسببات ينشئها منها، كما لا تقصر قدرته في هذا العالم المشهود عن أسبابه ومسبباته، وليس هذا بأهون عليه من ذلك. Otherwise, we know that the power of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, He says, that it is not limited from being able to act through other causes and bring about other effects, just as His power is not limited in this witnessable universe to the cause and the effects that we are used to. And this is no less to Him than that. وَلَعَلَّ نَشْأَةَ الْأُولَى التي أنشأها الرب سبحانه وتعالى فيها بالعيان والمشاهدة أعجب من النشأة الثانية التي وعدنا بها إذا تأملها اللبيب. And perhaps this first world that we live in, that is visible and observable to us, that was originated by Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, it could be more astonishing to the intellect than the second world that we've been promised if an intelligent person were to contemplate over what Allah has created in this world. وَلَعَلَّ إِخْرَاجَ هَذِهِ الْفَوَاكِهِ وَالثِّمَارِ من بين هذه التربة الغليظة والماء والخشب والهواء المناسب لها أعجب عند العقل من إخراجها من بين تربة الجنة ومائها وهوائها. And perhaps the fact that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala causes fruit and produce to emerge from the environment in this world, from amidst coarse soil, and the water in this world, and air that is suitable, climate that is suitable for it. This may be more astonishing to the intellect than to understand that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala will cause the fruit and the vegetation to grow in the paradise amidst the soil, the pure water, and the pure air and climate of the paradise. وَلَعَلَّ إِخْرَاجِ هذه الأشربة التي هي غذاء ودواء وشراب ولذة من بين فرث ودم ومن قي ذباب أعجب من إجرائها أنهارا في الجنة بأسباب أخر. He said perhaps these drinks of the people that contain nutrition and healing and refreshment and delight that are produced from the midst of fecal matter and blood like milk. He said, or that are produced from the vomit of flying insects like honey. He said perhaps this is more astonishing than the fact that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala will cause these things to be created and to flow as rivers in paradise by other means. وَلَعَلَّ إِخْرَاجُ جَوْهَرِي الذهب والفضة من عروق الحجارة من الجبال وغيرها أعجب من إنشائها هناك من أسباب أخرى. And perhaps the emergence of the two precious metals of gold and silver from the veins of rocks, they're being extracted from the veins of rocks from the insides of mountains and elsewhere. Perhaps the way that this comes about is more astonishing than Allah creating it in the hereafter by other means. وَلَعَلَ إِخْرَاجِ الْحَرِيرِ مِنْ لُعَابِ دُودَةِ الْقُزْ وبنائها على أنفسها القباب البيض والصفر أحكم بناء أعجب من إخراجه من أكمام تنشق عنه شجر هناك قد أودع فيها وأنشئ منها. And perhaps the emergence of silk, the way that silk occurs and is made in this world from the salivation of silkworms, and how they meticulously build dome structures upon themselves that are white and red and yellow in color. Perhaps this is more amazing than it sprouting as leaves blossoming from trees in paradise in the next life. وَلَعَلَّ جَرْيَانِ بِحَارِ الْمَاءِ بَيْنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ عَلَى ظُهُورِ السَّحَابِ أعجب من جريانها في الجنة في غير أخدود. He said, and perhaps the fact that there are lakes of water floating on the backs of clouds suspended between the sky and the earth in this world, meaning the rainwater. Perhaps this is more amazing than the fact that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala will cause the lakes and the rivers and the springs of Jannah, as comes in the hadith of Anas, أَتَذُنُّونَ أَنْ أَنْهَارَ الْجَنَّةِ تَجْرِي فِي الْأُخْدُودِ. He said, do you think that the rivers of the paradise, that they float entrenched in the land like on the earth that we live in? لا إنها والله لسائحة على وجه الأرض. لا والله, the rivers of paradise float over the surface of the land in the paradise. They float over the surface of the land in the paradise. The fact that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala can cause the equivalent of rivers and lakes to float in the sky in clouds in this world, he says perhaps that can be more astonishing to the intellect than that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala will cause the rivers of paradise and the climate and environment of paradise to float over the surface of the earth. وبالجملة فتأمل آيات الله التي دعا عباده إلى تفكر فيها وجعلها آيات دالة على كمال قدرته وعلمه ومشيئته وحكمته وملكه. He said, and in summary, contemplate over the signs of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, what Allah has created in this world, as He invited His slaves to think about these affairs, and He made these things to be evidence to demonstrate to His creation His perfect knowledge, His perfect power, His perfect will, His perfect wisdom, and His perfect mulk, authority and dominion over the creation. وَتَوَحُّدِهِ بَالرُّبُوبِيَّةِ, and the fact that He is singled out as alone being the possessor of lordship, وَالْإِلَهِيَّةِ, and the right to be worshipped. ثُمَّ وَازٍ بَيْنَهُمَا, and then weigh between these two affairs what Allah has created and how it is evidence of the perfect attributes of Allah Tabaraka wa ta'ala, compare between that and what Allah Tabaraka wa ta'ala informed us about of the affair of the hereafter, the paradise and the fire. And you'll find that this affair of Allah's creation and how it is the evidence of His perfect attributes, that it is the greatest evidence for the hereafter and for the paradise and the fire being a reality, and it bears witness in favor of it. And you will find that they both come from a single source of light, and they were created by one Lord and one Creator and one Master. فَبُعْدًا لِقَوْمٍ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. And so may a people who disbelieve be distanced far away from His paradise. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, وَكَيْفَ يُقَدَّرُ قَدْرَ دَارٍ غَرَسَهَا اللَّهُ بِيَدِهِ. He said, how could a person, he says in the end of his book, and these words that you are about to hear, they are like a summary of all 70 chapters of the book of Ibn Qayyim rahmatullahi alayhi. He says, وَكَيْفَ يُقَدَّرُ قَدْرَ دَارٍ غَرَسَهَا اللَّهُ بِيَدِهِ. How can the people assign a value and a worth to a world that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has planted His trees with His own hands? Tabaraka wa ta'ala. وَجَعَلَهَا مَقَرًّا لِأَحْبَابِهِ. And He has made as a final abode for those that He loves. وَمَلَأَهَا مِن رَحْمَتِهِ وَكَرَامَاتِهِ وَرِضْوَانِهِ. And He filled with His mercy and His kindness and His ridwan and His being pleased with His servants and the effects of that. وَوَصَفَ نَعِيمَهَا بِالْفَوْزِ الْعَظِيمِ. And He described His bliss as being a tremendous success, the tremendous success. وَمُلْكَهَا بِالْمُلْكِ الْكَبِيرِ. And He described His dominion and the kingdom that is in store for every person as being a tremendous kingdom for each person. وَأَوْدَعَهَا جَمِيعَ الْخَيْرِ بِحَذَافِرِهِ وَطَهَّرَهَا مِنْ كُلِّ عَيْبٍ وَآفَةٍ وَنَقْصٍ. And He placed the entirety of good therein, and He purified it and spared it from every defect and fault and shortcoming. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, فَإِن سَأَلْتَ عَنْ أَرْضِهَا وَتُرْبَتِهَا فَهِيَ الْمِسْكُ وَالزَّعْفْرَانِ. If you were to ask about its ground and its soil, then the ground and the soil of paradise is fine musk and saffron, meaning in its color, like a yellowish color. And he has one narration said, it's like khubz. It's like when bread is a little overcooked and it's white and it has some yellowish and orange type of tints. That's what the ground of paradise looks like. And the ground and the soil of paradise, فَهِيَ الْمِسْكُ وَالزَّعْفْرَانِ. And then it is fine musk and saffron. وَإِن سَأَلْتَ عَنْ سَقْفِهَا فَهُوَ عَرْشُ الرَّحْمَنِ. And if you were to ask about the ceiling of the paradise, then it is the throne of Ar-Rahman Tabarak wa Ta'ala. وَإِن سَأَلْتَ عَنْ بِلَاطِهَا فَهُوَ الْمِسْكُ الْأَذْفَرِ. And if you were to ask about its mortar that keeps its structures and its buildings together, then it is made from the most beautiful fragrance. وَإِن سَأَلْتَ عَنْ حُصَبَائِهَا فَهُوَ لُؤْلُؤُ وَالْجَوْهَرِ. Were you to ask about its pebbles, then it is built of bricks of gold and silver. وَإِن سَأَلْتَ عَنْ أَشْجَارِهَا فَمَا فِيهَا شَجَرَةٌ إِلَّا وَسَاقُهَا مِنْ ذَهَبِ وَالْفِضَّةِ لَا مِنَ الْحَطَبِ وَالْخَشَبِ. Were you to inquire about its trees, then there is not a tree therein except that its trunk is made of gold or silver, not of bark and wood. وَإِن سَأَلْتَ عَنْ ثَمَرِهَا فَأَمْثَالُ الْقِلَالِ. And if you were to ask about their fruits in the paradise, then the fruits are like enormous jugs. أَلْيَنُ مِنَ الزَّبَدْ وَأَهْلَ مِنَ الْعَسَلِ. Softer than butter and sweeter than honey. وَإِن سَأَلْتَ عَنْ وَرَقِهَا فَأَحْسَنُ مَا يَكُونُ مِنْ رَقَائِقِ الْحُلَلِ. You need to ask about the leaves of those trees, then they are better and softer than the most delicate silken cloth. وَإِن سَأَلْتَ عَنْ أَنْهَارِهَا فَأَنْهَارٌ مِنْ لَبَنٍ لَمْ يَتَغَيَّرْ طَعْمُهُ وَأَنْهَارٌ مِنْ خَمَرٍ لَذَّةً لِلشَّارِبِينَ وَأَنْهَارٌ مِنْ عَسَلٍ مُصَفَّةٍ. If you were to ask about its rivers, then they are rivers of milk that never spoil and lose its taste, and rivers of khamr that are delicious to those who drink. وَأَنْهَارٌ مِنْ عَسَلٍ مُصَفَّةٍ. And rivers of pure honey. وَإِن سَأَلْتَ عَنْ طَعَامِهِمْ فَفَاكِهَةٌ مِمَّا يَتَخَيَّرُونَ وَلَحْمُ الطَّيْرِ مِمَّا يَشْتَهُونَ. If you were to ask about their food, then it is whatever fruit that they choose, and it is the meat of any bird that they want to eat. وَإِن سَأَلْتَ عَنْ شَرَابِهِمْ فَالتَّسْنِيمُ وَزَنْجَبِيلُ وَالْكَافُورُ. If you were to ask about their drink, their beverage And they are made of tasneem and ginger and kafur. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he explains that zanjabil, that it is hot, and kafur, it is very cold. Zanjabil, it is hot, and kafur, it is very, and it has a cold taste. And Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, He says, فَأَخْبَرَ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى عن مزاج شرابهم بشيئين بالكافور في أول سورة وزنجبيل في آخرها. Allah has informed that their drink will be mixed with two things, with kafur, as comes in the beginning of Surah Al-Mutaffifin, and zanjabil, as occurs in the end. فإن في الكافور من البرد وطيب الرائحة وفي الزنجبيل من الحرارة وطيب الرائحة ما يحدث لهم باجتماع الشرابين ويجيء أحدهما على أثر الآخر حالة أخرى أكمل وأطيب وألذ من كل منهما بانفراده. He said, and so the one drinker has a cold taste and the most beautiful smell, and the other one has a hot taste and the most beautiful smell, and they are drinking one after drinking the other, and it will be bliss on top of bliss. It will be bliss on top of bliss. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, وَإِن سَأَلْتَ عَنْ أَنِيَتِهِمْ فَآنِيَةُ الذَّهَبُ وَالْفِضَّةِ فِي صَفَاءِ الْقَوَارِيرِ. He said, when you ask about their drinking vessels, then they are gold and silver, and they have the clarity of crystal. The Shaykh Sa'di rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, if a person was to thin and pound what they call gold leaf, and you pound gold very, very, very thin, no matter how thin you make gold, you can never make it translucent, let alone transparent. He said, imagine that the people will have golden vessels and silver vessels, as beautiful as you can imagine. And the gold and the silver of the paradise is something tremendous. And when we hear that there's not a tree in the paradise إِلَّا وَسَاقُهَا مِنْ ذَهَبٍ, except that its trunk is made out of gold. You hear about the jewelry of the people of the paradise, the man and the woman in the paradise. You hear about these sorts of affairs, they're gold vessels. The Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said in a hadith great to be authentic by Al-Albani rahmatullahi alayhi, in Al-Jami al-Saghir, he said, وَلَوْ أَنْ رَجُلًا مِنْ أَهْلِ الْجَنَّةِ اطَّلَعَ فَبَدَتْ سِوَارُهُ لَتَمِسَتْ سِوَارُهُ ضَوْءَ الشَّمْسِ كَمَا تَطْمِسُ الشَّمْسُ ضَوْءَ النُّجُومِ. He said that if a man from the people of paradise was to appear in this world, and his bangle became uncovered, and his gold or silver bracelet became exposed from underneath his clothing, then the brightness of his bracelet will fade out the light of the sun like the sun fades out the light of the stars. The brightness of his bracelet. What do you think about the woman of the Jannah? What do you think about the mansions of the Jannah? There's not a tree in the Jannah except that has a trunk of gold. You couldn't begin to fathom the beauty of the Jannah. وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا مَا تَشْتَهِي الْأَنفُسُ وَتَلَذُّ الْعَيُونَ. Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala summarized that by saying that in it you will have everything that brings pleasure to your soul and pleases your eye, is aesthetically pleasing, is as beautiful as is beyond what anybody can imagine of beauty, and it brings inner pleasure, and it is enjoyable and it is beautiful physically at the same time. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he said they are vessels that they drink from of gold and silver fi safa al-qawarir, but they are transparent like silver. They are transparent like crystal. He said that is because of the beauty of what they are drinking, so that they can see as they hold their vessels what is inside of their vessels. What they are drinking is beautiful itself. The drinks itself, they are beautiful. So they can see the drink. Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, He has created these vessels of gold and silver, and He has made the gold and silver transparent. Just like the homes in the Jannah. لَبِنَةٌ مِّن ذَهَبٍ وَلَبِنَةٌ مِّن فِضَّةٍ وَبِلَاتُهَا الْمِسْكُ الْأَذْفَرُ. The hadith that says the homes of paradise are made of bricks and silver and held together by the purest misk. يُرَى بَاطِنُهَا مِنْ ظَاهِرِهَا وَظَاهِرُهَا مِنْ بَاطِنِهَا. And you can see the outside from the inside and the inside from the outside. Transparent. Transparent gold and silver. As beautiful as, or beyond what a person can imagine. He goes on to say, وَإِن سَأَلْتَ عَنْ سُعَةِ أَبْوَابِهَا. He said if you were to ask about the vastness of its gates from one post to the other post, فبين المصرعين مسيرة 40 من العوام وليأتين عليه يوم وهو كظيظ من زحام. He said that from one post to the other post, not from one gate to the other gate, between the two posts of the gates of paradise is 40 years of journey. And as comes in the statement of Utbah bin Ghazwan, in his well-known khutbah that is in Sahih Muslim, وَلَيَأْتِيَنَّ عَلَيْهَا يَوْمَ وَهِيَ كَظِيظٌ مِّن زُحَامٍ. And soon there will come a day when those gates are jam-packed with people pouring into them. May Allah make us from them. The people will be pouring into the paradise. There will be congestion at a gate that is 40 miles or 40 years journey from one end to the other. Jam-packed, the people pouring into the paradise. This is the rahmah of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. وَلَيَأْتِيَنَّ عَلَيْهِ يَوْمَ وَهُوَ كَظِيظٌ مِّن زُحَامٍ. Soon a day will come when it is jam-packed with people pouring into the paradise through those gates. وَإِن سَأَلْتَ أَن تَصْفِيقَ الرِّيَاحِ أن تصفيق الرياح لأشجارها فإنها تستفز بالطرب لمن يسمعها. Were you to inquire about the sound of the wind rustling through the trees of the paradise, then they reverberate melodiously and make the heart of a person like dance, a tarab, and they mesmerize the heart of a person when he hears the sound of the winds of paradise blowing through the trees of paradise. وإن سألت عن ظلها ففيها شجرة واحدة يصير الراكب المجد السريع في ظلها 100 عام لا يقطعها. If you were to ask about the shade of the paradise, there is a tree in the paradise that a person will travel for 100 years in a shade without leaving from the shade. وإن سألت عن سعتها فأدنى أهلها يسير في ملكه وسرره وقصوره وقصوره وبساتينه مسيرة 1000 عام. Were you to inquire about the vastness of the paradise, a person will have the least in the paradise, and it will take him 2,000 years, he said, to see all of his palaces and his entire kingdom in the paradise. This statement is reported by Mujahid, it was reported from Abdullah ibn Amr, and it is da'if, and it is weak. And it is raised to the Prophet ﷺ, and the scholars have said that narration is weak. But there is the narration of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud about Adna Ahl al-Jannati Manzila. It's found with Al-Mundhiri, Al-Hafidh Al-Mundhiri and Al-Targhib Al-Tarhib, about the person who will have the least in the paradise. فَيُقَالُ لَهُ مُلْكُكَ مَسِيرَةُ 100 عَامٍ يَنْفُضُهُ بَصَرُهُ. In which, near the end of the hadith, and when he goes into his home in the paradise, and his beautiful, gorgeous, wonderful, sweet wife in the paradise, when she says to him, Alhamdulillah alladhi khalaqaka lana wa khalaqana lak. All praise is due to Allah who created us, meaning her and her co-wife, for you, and you for us. Who created us for you and who created you for us. Subhanallah. Wallahi, the sisters should never feel ghadada. The scholars, they say that Shaykh Uthaymeen rahmatullahi alayhi, when he was asked about the bliss of the woman of paradise, he said that the women of this world that will be in the paradise, they are more beautiful than the Hurul Ain. So when you hear about the beauty of the Hurul Ain, inshallah, sister, you'll be more beautiful than that if you make it. The bliss of the Hurul Ain, inshallah, sister, you have more bliss. Atammu ladha. And your bliss will be will be more complete than those women. And everything. What woman doesn't want to be the object of her husband's undying attention? Doesn't want her husband to be amazed with her beauty. As we'll come to see in these descriptions that Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala summarizes what is in the nusus in the text about the Hurul Ain. Subhanallah. And this is for the sisters. And to know that inshallah, the women who make it from this world into the paradise, they will be more beautiful and they will be in even more bliss. A woman doesn't want to have the castles and the mansions and the servants and especially the servants, right? Tayyib. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, rather in the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, it will be said to him after he stands up from being with his beautiful wives, and the narration where he saw his home in the Jannah, when his home appeared in the horizon to him, And it was so beautiful, he fell into sajda, and his qahraman, his gatekeeper from the malaika, the one that keeps the keys and opens up the gates for his mansions, from the servants rather of the Jannah, says to him, Irfa ra'asak malak, raise your head, what is wrong with you? He said, Ra'itu Rabbi wa tara'a li Rabbi. I think I just saw Allah. He said, Waylaka, innaha qasaru min qusurik. He said, woe be to you, it's one of your many castles. It's one of your many castles. And he saw the beauty in the horizon. And he felt shy and he fell into sajda. Raise your hand, raise your head, what's wrong with you? Shaykh Al-Albani grades the hadith to be authentic. Ibn Qayyim, he says this hadith is authentic, is azim. It's a tremendous hadith, a long hadith of Abdullah bin Mas'ud about the Day of Judgment, the bliss of the person who have the least in the paradise. At the end of the hadith, the person who have the least, it will be said to him that your mulk, that your kingdom in the paradise will be 100 years journey. Meaning it will take you 100 years to see every part of your kingdom. It will take you 100 years to see every part of your kingdom. يَنْفُضُهُ بَصَرُهُ. But he will be able to, meaning physically to see every part of his kingdom, but he will be able to see it all at one time. Whatever he wants to see of his kingdom, nothing will be hidden to him. If he has a beautiful wife, such a distance away, he'll be able to see her at any time he wants. يَنْفُضُهُ بَصَرُهُ. He will be able to see it all at one time, but it will take him 100 years to see everything in his kingdom. It's a person who has the least in the paradise. وَإِن سَأَلْتَ عَنْ خِيَامِهَا وَقُبَّابِهَا فَالْخَيْمَةُ الْوَاحِدَةُ مِنْ دُرَّةٍ مُجَوَّفَةٍ طَوْلُهَا 60 مَيْلًا مِنْ تِلْكَ الْخِيَامِ. He said, if you were to ask about the pavilions of the paradise and the pavilions and the canopies, they are what is set up for people to host their guests and so on and so forth inside of their gardens, and not even a person's home. It's not what is being spoken about here, as Ibn Qayyim mentions elsewhere in his book, in this tremendous book. That the khayma of the believer in the paradise is like when a person he pitches a tent and they host guests and so on and so forth. He said that one khayma that would be full of his furnishings and his servants and so on and so forth, for the people of paradise to sit and benefit one another and enjoy the company of one another. As the scholars, they say that the people of Jannah, that being with each other will increase their bliss on top of their bliss, just like the people of fire seeing one another in the fire, it will be adhab ala adhab. It will be torment on top of adhab, on top of other torment, because they will blame each other for being there. They don't want to see each other when they feel that each other were responsible for why they are there. The people of Jannah, just like they were working together hand in hand in this world, مُتَعَاوِنِينَ عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى, using their resources to establish the good, they will be with each other in the paradise, upon raised thrones facing one another. Just one khayma, just one pavilion, one canopy tent in the paradise, min durratin mujawwafa. It is made of a single hollowed out pearl, and it is 60 nautical miles in height. It is 60 nautical miles high. That's a lot of miles. That's over 40 miles high. And it is the same width. And the width is the same. وَإِن سَأَلْتَ عَنْ عَلَالِيهَا وَجَوَاسِقِهَا فَهِيَ غُرَفٌ مِنْ فَوْقِهَا غُرَفٌ مَبْنِيَّةٌ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ. Were you to inquire about its towers and its palaces, then they are mansions constructed above one another, under which rivers flow. And the people, they will see. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, Allah knows best. He said, but the paradise gets higher and higher, and as it gets higher, it gets wider and wider. As we know from the text, the higher it gets, the wider it gets. And the most vast part of the universe is that which is under the throne of Ar-Rahman, Al-Firdawsul A'la. He said, perhaps, he said, Allah knows best, but to help you understand, he said the people, their kingdoms will be built one on top of another after another. He said, like when you see cities built on the sides of mountains. One habitation, another habitation, another habitation. He said the paradise will extend up, and the people, they will look at the kingdoms of one another and the homes and the mansions of one another. He said, if you were to ask about how high they will be from one another, فانظر إلى الكوكب الطالع والغارب في الأفق الذي لا تكاد تناله الأبصار. He said, then if you were to ask about how high they will be and far apart they will be from one another, then look at the brightest or the dimmest star on the horizon that can hardly be seen with the naked eye. And that is how their homes will look like to one another. Like stars twinkling in the sky. وَإِن سَأَلْتَ عَنْ فُرُشِهَا فَبَطَائِنُهَا مِنْ اسْتَبْرَقٍ مَفْرُوشَةٍ فِي أَعْلَى رُتَبٍ. If you were to ask about its bedding, then the underside, the sheets and the cushions of the paradise will be the finest silk brocade. So if the undersides is the finest silk, then what do you think about the silk that they actually sit upon? He said, if you were to ask about its ara'ik, if you were to ask about its thrones, فهي الأسرة عليها البشخانات وهي الحجال مزررة بأزرار الذهب. So if you were to ask about the ara'ik of the paradise, and the ara'ik, they are like thrown like couches. They're like couches that royalty sit upon, with more than one person, a man with his woman or children, so on and so forth. And it has three parts. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he said a thing is not called an arika until it has three parts. The sarira, which is the couch itself. The couch itself, the hijal, the sarir, which is the couch itself, the what's called the bashkhana, which is a canopy that drapes over it, a canopy that hangs over it. He said, and the third part is the actual cushion that sits on top of the cushion that sits on the couch itself. He said, if you ask about these ara'ik, about these raised, lofty couches that they will sit on, these honorable royal thrones and couches that they will sit upon, then they are canopied, and they have the handles of gold, the armrest of gold, ma laha min furuj wala khilal, and there is no defects or any shoddiness in the way that they are put together. وَإِن سَأَلْتَ عَنْ وُجُوهِ أَهْلِهَا وَحُسْنِهِمْ فَعَلَى صَوْرَةِ الْقَمَرِ. You to ask about the faces of his people and their beauty, then their faces are beautiful like the full moon. وإن سألت عن أسنانهم فأبناء 33 على صورة آدم عليه السلام أبو البشر. If you were to ask about their ages, then they will all be 33 years old, with the stature of Adam. And Adam عليه الصلاة والسلام, and he was 60 ذراع, and he was 60 cubits tall. He was 60 cubits tall. And the people have not ceased getting shorter because of their sins and so on and so forth from the time of Adam عليه الصلاة والسلام. And so the people will be 60 cubits tall. It will be 60 cubits tall in the paradise. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, He will make, as the scholars they say, He will make their bodies enormous so that their bliss can be more complete, just as He will make the bodies of the people of fire enormous so that their torment can be more complete. And so their bodies will be made enormous. They will be 60 cubits tall and 7 cubits wide, as comes in authentic narrations. And they will have, as one authentic narration, greatest to be authentic by Al-Albani rahmatullahi alayhi, says that they will have the beauty of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam ala qalbi Ayyub. And they will have the heart of Ayub. Why? What happened to Ayub? He lost everything. What did he lose? His wealth, his family, his children, everything. So a person will have what? A person will have went to their grave. They will have been separated from everything. And then Allah did what? He caused Ayub to be reunited with his family. And then He gave him mithlahum ma'ahum rahmatan. And He gave him, and then He replaced him with more than them. Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, and had to remove the calamity, the dhur, the ba's from Ayub alayhi salatu wasalam. And this was the heart of Ayub. So the people in paradise, this hadith is authentic, it said that they will have the heart of Ayub. They will have the heart of Ayub. And they will be jurdan murdan mukahhalin. And they will be free of physical hair on their bodies, hair on their faces. There won't be any beards in the paradise. Mukahhalin. And they will have darkness around their eyes, like kuhl. Mukahhalin. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, because of the brightness of their faces, in order for their eyes to stand out from the rest of their face, they have to have darkness around their eyes, so that their eyes can be distinct from the rest of their face. وَإِن سَأَلْتَ عَنْ سِمَاعِهِمْ فَغِنَاءُ أَزْوَاجِهِمْ مِنَ الْحُورِ الْعِينِ. If you were to ask about what they will hear in the paradise, then they will hear the singing of their wives from the Hur al-Ain. وَعَلَى مِنْهُ السِّمَاءُ أَصْوَاتِ الْمَلَائِكَ وَالنَّبِيِّينَ. And even higher than that is hearing the voices of the Malaika and the prophets. وَعَلَى مِنْهُمَا خِتَابُ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. And even higher than that is hearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala address you directly and give you the salams. You hear Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. أَعْلَى مِنْهُمَا. Is higher than what you will hear from the beautiful voice of your beautiful wife. If Allah blesses you with that, and hearing the voices of the Malaika and the prophets, they will hear the speech of Allah Rabbil Alameen. وَإِن سَأَلْتَ عَنْ مَطَايَاهُمْ الَّتِي يَتَزَاوَرُونَ عَلَيْهَا فَنَجَائِبٍ شَاءَ اللَّهِ مِمَّا شَاءَ يَسِيرُ بِهِمْ حَيْثُ شَاءُ مِنَ الْجِنَانِ. Were you to ask about their transport upon which they will visit one another, and delegations, and they will be riding upon steeds. And one narration, steeds with wings, if you want them to have wings, flying horses. Flying horses. Delegations. You going with your wives and your children and so on and so forth and your servants to go visit your brother in his kingdom. To go visit your brother in his kingdom that looks like a twinkling star in the sky. Going to visit your people, your family. Going to visit those that you loved in this world. Going to sit, as Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he said that those that enjoyed beneficial kalam in this world, they will enjoy that beneficial kalam in the hereafter. And there is no kalam that is more beneficial than the majalis al-ulama. When the majalis al-ulama, the sittings of the ulama, the sittings of the scholars. Imagine watching the scholars from generation saying, حدثنا فلان عن فلان عن فلان حدثنا فلان from fulan, from the messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The scholars sitting together who have passed this knowledge down generation after generation. The people being able to visit one another and being able to visit those that are noble, those that they love. الْمَرْءُ مَعَ مَنْ أَحَبَّ. A man will be with those that he loves in the hereafter. A man will be with those that he loves in the hereafter. If you were to ask about the transport upon which they visit one another, then they will be steeds, Allah willing, that will take them wherever they wish in the paradise. وَإِن سَأَلْتَ عَنْ حُلِيِّهِمْ وَشَارَتِهِمْ فَأَسَاوِرَ الذَّهَبُ وَاللُّؤْلُؤُ عَلَى رُؤُوسِ مَلَابِسِ تِيجَانِ. Were to inquire about the jewelry and the crest and the emblems that they will have upon them, then they will be bracelets of gold and silver. And you heard the hadith. If his bracelet was to show or fade out the light of the sun like the sun fades out the light of the stars. And upon their heads will be crowns. وَإِن سَأَلْتَ عَنْ غِلْمَانِهِمْ فَوِلْدَانٌ مُخَلَّدُونَ كَأَنَّهُمْ لُؤْلُؤٌ مَكْنُونَ. If you were to ask about their servant boys, and they will be eternal youth, and they will look like preserved pearls. وَإِن سَأَلْتَ عَنْ عَرَائِسِهِمْ وَأَزْوَاجِهِمْ. And if you were to ask about their brides and their wives, فَهُنَ الْكَوَاعِبُ الْأَتْرَابِ اللَّاتِ جَارَ فِي أَغْصَانِهِنَّ فِي أَعْضَائِهِنَّ مَاءُ الشَّبَابِ. Were you to ask about his brides and his wives, then they are young and full-breasted, and the liquid of youth flows through their limbs. فَلِلْوَرْدِ وَالتُّفَاحِ مَا لَبِسَتْهُ الْخُدُودِ وَلِلرُّمَّانِ مَا تَضَمَّنَتْهُ النُّهُودِ. And her cheeks that surround her lips, Her cheeks around her lips and the color of her lips is amazing, like the color of rose or apple. وَلُؤْلُوَ الْمَنْظُومَ حَوَتْهُ ثُغُورٌ. And when you look at her mouth, and her teeth are beautiful like a string of pearls. وَلِلرَّقَةِ وَلَطَافَ مَا دَارَتْ عَلَيْهِ الْخُصُورِ. And how extremely delicate and subtle is that which is enveloped and surrounded by her waist and her pelvis. تجري الشمس في محاسن وجهها إذا برزت ويضيء البرق من بين ثناياهم إذا ابتسمت. Ibn Qayyim, he said, if that doesn't increase your iman is madkhul, your iman is corrupted. And if you hear about the women of the paradise and you don't fall in love with them, and you don't want them, and you don't work for them, and you don't prepare their mahr, then there is something wrong with your iman. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, when her face shows, it is like the sun was moving through the features of her face due to its beauty. And the illumination of lightning was coming from between her teeth when she smiles. وَإِذَا قَابَلْتَ حُبَّهَا فَقُلْ مَا تَشَاءُ فِي تَقَابُلِ النِّيرَانِ. When you interact with her love, then say what you will about two passionate flames interacting with one another. وَإِذَا حَادَثَتْهُ فَمَا ظَنُّكَ بِمُحَادَثَةِ الْحِبِّينَ. And when she speaks to him, what do you think two lovers would discuss? وَإِنْ ضَمَّهَا إِلَيْهِ فَمَا ظَنُّكَ بِتَعَانُقِ الْغِصْنَيْنِ. And if he embraces her, and how do you think two limbs intertwined would embrace one another? يَرَى وَجْهَهُ فِي سُحْنِ خَدِّهَا كَمَا يَرَى فِي الْمِرْآةِ الَّتِي جَلَّاهَا صَيْقَرَهَا. He sees his face on the surface of her cheek. He can see his reflection in her face. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, because when a person is happy and they see themselves in the mirror happy, this increases their happiness. And while he is enjoying his wife, he will see the reflection of his face in the cheek of his wife. He will see the reflection of his face. While he is in her company and speaking to her and being intimate with her, he will be able to see his reflection in her face. وَيَرَى مُخَ سَاقِهَا مِنْ وَرَاءِ اللَّحْمِ وَلَا يَسْتُرُهُ جِلْدُهَا وَلَا عَظْمُهَا وَلَا حُلَلُهَا. And he can see the marrow of her shin from behind her muscle, unobstructed by bone, flesh, or clothing. لَوْ اطَّلَعَتْ عَلَى الدُّنْيَا لَمَلَأَتْ مَا بَيْنَ الْأَرْضِ وَالسَّمَاءِ رِيحًا. Were she to appear to this world, her fragrance would fill what is between the sky and the earth. وَلَا اسْتَنْطَقَتْ أَفْوَاهُ الْخَلَائِقْ تَهْلِيلًا وَتَكْبِيرًا وَتَسْبِيحًا. And her mere presence will cause the mouths of all of the creation to say, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, Subhanallah. وَلَا تَزَخْرَفَ لَهَا مَا بَيْنَ الْخَافِقَيْنِ. And everything from the east and the west would beautify itself for her. وَلَا أَغْمَضَتْ عَنْ غَيْرِهَا كُلُّ عَيْنٍ. And the eye of every creature will be disinterested in looking at anything but her. وَلَا طَمِسَتْ ضَوْءَ الشَّمْسِ كَمَا تَطْمِسَ الشَّمْسُ ضَوْءَ النُّجُومِ. And she will fade out the light of the sun like the sun fades out the light of the stars. وَلَا آمَنَ مَنْ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ بِاللَّهِ الْحَيُّ الْقَيُّومِ. And all upon the face of the earth would then believe in Allah al-Hayyul Qayyum if they saw this woman. وَنَصِيفُهَا عَلَى رَأْسِهَا خَيْرٌ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا وَمَا فِيهَا. The scarf upon her head is better than this world and all that it contains. وَوِصَالُهَا أَشْهَى إِلَيْهِ مِنْ جَمِيعِ أَمَانِهَا. And reaching her and arriving to her in her company is more desirous to him than all the hopes in this world. لَا تَزْدَادُ عَلَى طَوْلِ الْأَحْقَابِ إِلَّا حُسْنًا وَجَمَالًا. Over age, over time, she only increases in attractiveness and beauty. وَلَا يَزْدَادُ لَهَا طَوْلَ الْمُدَى إِلَّا مَحَبَّةً وَوِصَالًا. And over time, he only increases in his love of her and his want to be near to her. مُبَرَّأَةً مِنَ الْحَبْلِ وَالْوِلَادَةِ وَالْحَيْضِ وَنِفَاسِ. She is free of umbilical cord, labor, menstrual, and postpartum blood. مُطَهَّرَةً مِنَ الْمَخَاطِ وَالْبَصَاقِ وَالْبَوْلِ وَالْغَائِطِ وَسَائِرَ الْأَدْنَاسِ. She is clean and pure of mucus, saliva, urine, fecal matter, and other impurities. لَا يَفْنَ شَبَابُهَا وَلَا تَبْلَ ثِيَابُهَا. Her youth will never fade, her garment will never fade. وَلَا يَخْلَقْ ثَوْبُ جَمَالِهَا. And her beauty will never fade. وَلَا يَمَلُ طَيِّبُ وِصَالِهَا. And the enjoyment of being with her is something that a person will never get bored with. قَدْ قَصَرَتْ طَرْفَهَا عَنْ زَوْجِهَا فَلَا تَطْمَحْ لِأَهَدٍ سِوَاهُ. She is disinterested in looking and seeing anything and looking at anything but her husband. وَقَصُرَ طَرْفُهُ عَلَيْهَا فَهِيَ غَايَةُ أَمَانِهِ. and his eyesight is restricted to her, and she is the greatest thing that he could have ever wished for. وَإِن سَأَلْتَ عَنْ حُسْنِ الْعُشْرَةِ عَنْ حُسْنِ الْعِشْرَةِ وَلَذَّةِ مَا هُنَاكَ. That's just her appearance. He said, but if you were to ask about her good companionship and her character and the sensual pleasure of being with her, فَهُنَّ الْعُرُبِ المتحببات إلى الأزواج بلطافة التبعل التي تمتزج بالروح أي امتزاج. Then they are العرب. They are women who endear themselves to their husband perpetually by compassionate wifery, and they intermingle, and their treatment of their husband, it intermingles with his soul. It touches him in the depths of his soul in the most amazing way. فما ظنك بامرأة إذا ضحكت في وجه زوجها أضاءت الجنة من ضحكها. What do you think about a woman? How can you imagine about a woman that if she were to laugh in the face of her husband, that the paradise will light up from her laughter? وإذا انتقلت من قصر إلى قصر قلت هذه الشمس متنقلة في بروج فلكها. And if she was to go from one castle, one palace to another palace, then the people, they would think that it was the sun moving in its orbit. وإذا حاضرت زوجها فهي حسن تلك المحاضرة. And when she presents herself to her husband, what a beautiful presentation. وإن خاصرته فهي لذة تلك المعانقة والمخاصرة. And when her خاصرة, and when her waist and pelvis and his come together, فَيَا لَذَّةَ تِلْكَ الْمُعَانَقَةِ. Then what a pleasurable embrace that will be. وحديثها السحر الحلال لو أنه لم يجن قتل المسلم المتحرز. And he quotes some lines of poetry. He said, her conversation, talking to her, is like halal magic. Her speech is like halal magic. And so long as a person, and even if a person didn't go crazy, wouldn't go crazy from hearing the speech of this woman in this world, it could kill a person who thought that they were safe and protected and fortified. If she talks at length, إن طال لم يمل وإن هي حدثت وإن هي حدثت, and if he talks for a long time, she doesn't get bored with what he has to say. And when she speaks, وَدَّ الْمُحَدَّث أَنَّهَا لَمْ تُوجِزِ. And the one who is being spoke to hopes that she never stops speaking, doesn't want her to be short in her speech. وَإِنْ غَنَّتْ فِيهَا لَذَّةَ الْأَبْصَارِ وَالْأَسْمَعِ فَيَا لَذَّةَ الْأَبْصَارِ وَالْأَسْمَعِ. وَإِنْ غَنَّتْ, and if she were to sing to you, and how pleasing would it be to the sight and the hearing. Not like these old scallywags in this world. Oh, nasty, filthy, trifling, disease-ridden woman. And that only look cute to the people because Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has sealed their hearts. Because they love what is khabith, and they turn their back on what is beneficial, and so Allah punished them with what is harmful. You heard the words of Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala in the beginning of his book. How would you exchange that for promiscuous women that exchange mates over and over, one after another? Qaleel al-wafa. She doesn't have any loyalty to you. She doesn't love you. Hasbunallah. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he said if she was to sing to you, and how pleasing to the sight and to the hearing. وَإِنْ أَنِسَتْ وَامْتَعَتْ فَيَا حَبَذَا تِلْكَ الْمُؤَانَسَةِ وَالْإِمْتَاعِ. And when she comforts and pleases her husband, then how amazing is that comforting and that pleasure. وَإِنْ قَبَّلَتْ فَلَا شَيْء أَشْهَى إِلَيْهِ مِنْ ذَلِكَ التَّقْبِيلِ. And when she kisses you, then nothing will be more delightful to you than that kiss. وَإِنْ نُوِّلَتْ فَلَا أَلَذَّ وَلَا أَطْيَبَ مِنْ ذَلِكَ التَّنْوِيلِ. And when she is God, then there is nothing more pleasurable than pure than handling her. هذا وإن سألت عن يوم المزيد وزيارة العزيز الحميد ورؤية وجهه المنزع عن التمثيل والتشبيه كما ترى الشمس في الظهيرة والقمر ليلة البدر كما تواتر عن الصادق المصدوق النقل فيه وذلك موجود في الصحاح والسنن والمسانيد من رواية جرير وصحيب وأنس وأبي هريرة وأبي موسى وأبي سعيد فاستمع يوم ينادي المنادي يا أهل الجنة. He said, and along with this, if you were to ask about the day of increase, when the people will visit Al-Aziz Al-Hamid Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, and see the face, the pure face of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala that doesn't resemble, is not likened to anything of His creation. As clearly as they can see the sun and the moon in this world, they will see the face of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. He said, then it is just as has been reported from As-Sadiq al-Masduq sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in the Sihah and the Sunnah and the Masanid, authentically from the hadith of Jarir and Suhaib and Anas and Abi Hurraira and Abi Musa and Abi Sa'id. He said, فَاسْتَمِي يَا مَنْ يُنَادِ الْمُنَادِ يَا أَهْلَ الْجَنَّةِ. He said, listen, a caller will call out, O people of Jannah, إِنَّ رَبَّكُمْ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى يَسْتَزِيرُكُمْ. Indeed, your Lord Tabaraka wa Ta'ala invites you to visit Him. فَحَيَّ عَلَى زِيَارَتِهِ. So come and visit your Lord Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. فَيَقُولُونَ سَمْعًا وَطَاعَةً وَيَنْحَضُونَ إِلَى زِيَارَةِ مُبَادِرِينَ. And they will say, we hear and we obey. And they will rush to the visitation with Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. فَإِذَا بِالنَّجَائِبْ قَدْ عِدَّتْ لَهُمْ فَيَسْتَوُونَ عَلَى ظُهُورِهَا مُسْرِعِينَ حتى إذا انتهوا إلى الوادي الأفيح الذي جعل لهم موعدا وجمعوا هنالك فلم يغادر الداعي منهم أحدا. He said, and they will go to their steeds that have been prepared for them to journey for the place of meeting, has been appointed by Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And they will race quickly to the vast valley in which the people will assemble every Friday to see Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, the face of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. That has been made the appointed time and place for them. And none of them will have missed the invitation. أمر الرب تبارك وتعالى بكرسيه فنصب هناك ثم نصبت لهم منابر من نور ومنابر من لؤلؤ ومنابر من زبرجد ومنابر من ذهب ومنابر من فضة. So Allah تبارك وتعالى, He will order that pulpits be erected for them to sit upon. Pulpits of light, pulpits of coral, pulpits of pearl, pulpits of emerald, pulpits of gold and silver. وَجَلِسَ أَدْنَاهُمْ وَحَشَاهُمْ مَنْ يَكُنْ فِيهِمْ دَنِي. And the one who is the least of them. And they are far from any of them being considered to be dani, to be lowly or unnoble. But the one who has the least from amongst them, he said, they will sit upon kuthban al-misk. They will sit upon mounds of musk. وَمَا يَرَوْنَ أَنْ أَصْحَابَ الْكَرَاسِ فَوْقَهُمْ فِي الْعَطَايَا حَتَّى إِذَا اسْتَقَرَّتْ بِهِ مَجَالِسُهُمْ وَاطْمَأَنَّتْ بِهِمْ أَمَاكِنُهُمْ. He said, until they have taken their places and they have settled, نَادَ الْمُنَادِي, a caller will call out, يَا أَهْلَ الْجَنَّةِ, O people of Jannah, إِنَّا لَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ مَوْعِدًا يُرِيدُ أَنْ يُنْجِزُكُمُوهُ. O people of Jannah, indeed you have an appointment with Allah that He wants to fulfill with you. فَيَقُولُونَ مَا هُوَ أَلَمْ يُبَيِّضْ وُجُوهَنَا. He will say, what could it be? Hasn't He already brightened our faces? أَلَمْ يُبَيِّضْ وُجُوهَنَا وَيُثَقِّلْ مَوَازِينَنَا وَيُدْخِلْنَا الْجَنَّةِ وَيُزَحْزِحْنَا عَنِ النَّارِ. Hasn't He brightened our faces? And hasn't He made our deeds weighty on our scales? And hasn't He entered us into paradise and distanced us far away from fire? فَبَيْنَمَا هُمْ كَذَلِكَ إِذْ سَطَعَ لَهُمْ نُورٌ أَشْرَقَتْ لَهُ الْجَنَّةِ فَرَفَعُوا رُؤُوسَهُمْ. And while they are in that condition, a light will fill the entirety of paradise. And they will raise their heads. And they will raise their heads. فَإِذَا الْجَبَّارُ جَلَّ جَلَالُهُ وَتَقَدَّسَتْ أَسْمَاؤُهُ قَدْ أَشْرَفَ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ فَوْقِهِمْ. And they will see that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, that He has shown them to Himself, that He has shown them Himself, His face Tabaraka wa Ta'ala from above them. وَقَالَ يَا أَهْلَ الْجَنَّةِ سَلَامٌ عَلَيْكُمْ. And He will say, O people of Jannah, سَلَامٌ عَلَيْكُمْ. فَلَا تُرَدُّ هَذِهِ التَّحِيَّةِ بِأَحْسَنِ مِنْ قَوْلِهِمْ لَهُمَّ أَنْتَ السَّلَامُ وَمِنْكَ السَّلَامُ تَبَارَكْتَ يَا ذَا الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ. And there is nothing more appropriate that the people of paradise could respond to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala with than they're saying, Oh Allah, indeed you are as-salam, and from you is as-salam. Tabarakta ya dhal jalali wal ikram. فَيَتَجَلَّ لَهُمَ الرَّبُّ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى يَضْحَكُ إِلَيْهِمْ. And Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala will show Himself to them and He will be smiling at them. وَيَقُولُ يَا أَهْلَ الْجَنَّةِ فَيَكُونُ أَوَّلْ مَا يَسْمَعُونَهُ مِنْ. And He will say, O people of Jannah, And the first thing that he will hear them say, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala will say, Inna ibadi alladhina ata'uni bil ghayb wa lam yarawni fahada yawm al mazid. Where are my slaves that used to fear me and obey me, even though they cannot see me? This is a day of increase. فَيَجْتَمِعُونَ عَلَى كَلِمَةٍ وَاحِدَةٍ قَدْ رَضِينَ. And they will all say the same thing, Oh Allah, we are pleased. فَارْضَ عَنَّا, so be pleased with us. فَيَقُولُوا يَا أَهْلَ الْجَنَّةِ إِنِّي لَا لَمْ أَرْضَ عَنْكُمْ لَمْ أُسْكِنْكُمْ جَنَّتِي. And Allah will say, O people of Jannah, if I was not pleased with you, I would have not allowed you to dwell in my paradise. وَهَذَا يَوْمُ الْمَزِيدِ فَاسْأَلُونِي. This is a day of increase, so ask me. فَيَجْتَمِعُونَ عَلَى كَلِمَةٍ وَاحِدَةٍ أَرِنَا وَجْهَكَ نَنْظُرْ إِلَيْكَ. And they will all say the same thing, Oh Allah, let us look at your face. فَيَكْشِفُ لَهُمَ الرَّبُّ جَلَّ جَلَالُهُ الْحُجُبِ. And so the veils will be removed. وَيَتَجَلَّ لَهُمْ فَيَغْشَاهُ مِنْ نُورِهِ مَا لَوْلَاهُ أَنَّ اللَّهَ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى قَضَى أَنْ لَا يَحْتَرِقُ لَاحْتَرَقُوا. And the brightness of the face of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, and we will overcome them of the light of the face of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, will be to the extent that had Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala not created them in a way that they will not be destroyed, they will be destroyed by the brightness of the face of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, كما ثبت عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. And that is authentic from the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. ولا يبقى في ذلك المجلس أحد إلا حاضره ربه تبارك وتعالى محاضرة. There is not a single person in that masjid except that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala will hold audience with him personally. حتى أنه لا يقول يا فلان أتذكر يوم فعلت كذا وكذا. Until he will say, Oh so and so, don't you remember the day when you did such and such? يذكره ببعض غدراته في الدنيا, reminding him of some of his slips in the dunya. فيقول يا رب ألم تغفر لي. You say, Oh Allah, didn't you forgive me? فيقول بلى بمغفرتي بلغت منزلتك. He will say, of course, by my forgiveness you reach this level. فَيَا لَذَّةَ الْأَسْمَاءِ بِتِلْكَ الْمُحَاضَرَةِ وَيَا قُرَّةِ عُيُونِ الْأَبْرَارِ بِالنَّظْرِ إِلَى وَجْهِ الْكَرِيمِ فِي الدَّارِ الْآخِرَةِ. And so how pleasurable is it going to be for the people to hear Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala speak to them? And how cooling will it be to their eyes, to the eyes of the righteous, to look at the face of Allah Al-Kareem fi الدَّارِ الْآخِرَةِ. وَيَظُلَّةَ الرَّاجِعِينَ بِالصَّفَقَةِ الْخَاسِرَةِ. And how humiliating must it be for those that lost in this world, بِالصَّفَقَةِ الْخَاسِرَةِ. Yani who lost the opportunity and who exchanged that for the punishment of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. وُجُوهٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ نَاظِرَةٌ إِلَى رَبِّهَا نَاظِرَةٌ وَوُجُوهٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ بَاسِرَةٌ تَظُنُّ أَنْ يُفْعَلَ بِهَا فَاقِرَةٌ. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he said the faces of some people on that day will be radiant looking at Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And some faces on that day will be humiliated. تَظُنُّ أَنْ يُفْعَلَ بِهَا فَاقِرَةٌ, knowing that a calamity is about to befall them. And then he closes saying, فَحَيَا عَلَى جَنَّاتِ عَدَنٍ فَإِنَّهَا مَنَازِلُكَ الْأُولَى وَفِيهَا الْمُخَيَّمُ وَلَكِنَّ نَسَبِيَ الْعَدُوِّ فَهَلْ تَرَى نَعُودُ إِلَى أَوْطَانِنَا وَنُسَلَّمُ. So come and return back to gardens that are eternal, for verily they are your original home. And within it are those pavilions that you have been promised, but rather we find ourselves as the captives of our enemies. فَهَلْ تَرَى, so don't you think نَعُودُ إِلَى أَوْطَانِنَا وَنُسَلَّمُ, that we should go back to our homeland and find safety therein. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد. اللهم إنا نسألك الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار. Oh Allah, we ask you for the Jannah to protect us from the fire. اللهم إنا نسألك الجنة ونعوذ بك من النار. اللهم إنا نسألك الجنة وما قرب إليها من قول وعمل واعتقاد ونعوذ بك من النار وما قرب إليها من قول وعمل واعتقاد إنك سميع كريم جواد. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.